In 1896, the first Zionist, Theodor Herzl, wrote the book called The Jewish State. In this book, he said the only way for the Jews to avoid anti-Semitism was to flee to Palestine and to establish their homeland there. The following year of 1897, Theodor held the first Zionist conference in Basel, Switzerland. In this conference, him and other Zionists came to the idea of taking Palestine over for themselves, for a Jewish homeland. Not once did they consider the Palestinian people that were living there at the time. And now through strategic relationships, the Zionists were able to get Britain on their side. And so during World War I, Britain promised the Jews a homeland in Palestine. But at the same time, they promised the Arabs that they would get their own independence if they fought against Britain's enemy, which was the Ottoman Empire. So the Arabs did fight against the Ottoman Empire, thinking they were freeing themselves and gaining their own independence. But little did they know, Britain was going to backstab them after they won. So that was the collapse of Britain's enemy, which was the Ottoman Empire. And now this left Britain with no enemy in sight. Now they can do whatever they wanted. And that's why in 1917, the Balfour Declaration was made. In this document, British announces its support for a Jewish state in the land of Palestine. And now when this document was written for a Jewish state in the land of Palestine, 90% of the people living in Palestine were Palestinians. But these Zionists did not care. And now 1 month after the Balfour Declaration, the British troops took over Palestine and defeated the Ottoman Empire with the help of the Arabs. And now after World War I, the League of Nations came to a conference. In this conference, they took territory that was once ruled by Germany and the Ottoman Empire, who were now defeated, and they took it and split it. Britain was given Palestine, but the Palestinians not even once were asked about what they wanted in their country. Instead, Britain went to the Zionists and asked them what they wanted in Palestine. Of course, Britain helped the Zionists establish themselves in Palestine. And remember, this is the Palestinians' land. After years of British Zionist abuse, the Palestinians could not take it anymore, so they revolted in the year 1936. Massive conflicts began because the Palestinians could now see that Britain was not going to help them at all, and they completely lied to them about getting independence in their land. Tensions were high, so the British government created something called the Peel Commission to sort this out. But Britain's solution was to just take a map of Palestine and draw a line and give some to the Jews and give some to the Palestinians and leave it at that. Of course, the Palestinians did not agree to this because the land that was going to be given to the Jews was mainly Palestinians living in it. And so conflict kept on going until the year 1939. The 1939 White Paper was the first time there was a conflict between the British and the Zionists. Because remember, this whole time, the British and the Zionists are working together against the Palestinians. In this 1939 White Paper, the British said that the Palestinians should be given their independence within 10 years, and that they should not be selling or giving any more land to the Jews. The Zionists did not like this proposal, so in response, they went out and started setting off car bombs in the villages of the Palestinians and killing their people. A couple years of conflict, and now there was another major war, World War II. During this time, more Jews began fleeing to Palestine to avoid persecution from Europe. So now there are more Jews in Palestine than before, and also Britain is tired from World War II. They've lost a lot of people, it's a lot of manpower, a lot of energy that they had to use in World War II, and they're exhausted. So the Zionists knew this, and they used this to their advantage. In 1947, Britain completely left Palestine. They completely ran away and left the Zionists to deal with the Palestinians. And they also asked the UN to clean up their mess. The UN agrees to split Palestine into two, one for the Jews and one for the Palestinians. The main problem with this, besides all this land already being the Palestinians before and they're just taking it, the land that was given to the Jews was mainly made up of Palestinians living there. But of course, the Zionists did not care. They knew that their military was stronger than the Palestinians, and now that Britain left, they had no clear enemy in front of them, so they could do anything they wanted. And then the event of April 8th, 1948 happened. In Deir Yassin, 250 Palestinian men, women, and children were killed. The women and children were stripped naked, lined up, photographed, and then they were brutally murdered by the Zionists using assault rifles. And then later on in 1948, the State of Israel was formed. Violent Zionist gangs began expelling Palestinians in the hundreds of thousands. 750,000 Palestinian people became refugees overnight. This is referred to as the Nakba, or catastrophe. So that's the history. But now we're in the year 2024. And of course, the Zionists are still killing children, they're still killing women, they're still killing men, they're still taking land that's not theirs, and the genocide continues. So, what can me and you do? The Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Whoever among you sees evil, let him change it with his hand. If he cannot do so, then with his tongue. If he cannot do so, then with his heart," which is the weakest level of faith. First thing, can you change it with your hands? Can you go to Palestine right now and help them? If the answer is yes, we should try to go there and help them. Just recently at my local mosque, there was a man who's a doctor from here in the United States. He went over to Gaza to help them. And he said everything you see in the media about what's going on in Palestine and how bad it is, it's all true. So if you're able to go to Palestine and help them, and you believe that you can actually make a change there, then that's what you should do. But most of us are not doctors, and we cannot help in that way. And you have to understand, if you go there as a soldier to help the Palestinian people, they're not fighting the Israeli government one-on-one. The Israeli government just sends bombs, because that's all they can do. They can't fight one-on-one. They know they're going to lose. The second thing we can do is hurt them in their pockets. Stop spending money at these companies that are not pro-Palestine. Of course, we all know to boycott Starbucks, McDonald's, and all these other brands that are supporting the Zionist movement. But also, I want to take it a step further. I do not want to spend any of my money at any company that is not pro-Palestine. Because there are companies out there that say they're neutral. They're not pro-Israel and they're not pro-Palestine. Well, if you're not pro-Palestine, that means you're not pro-humanity. That means you don't have a heart. Because if you see innocent men, women, and children being killed and you're okay with it, you're just neutral, then you're part of the problem too. You see evil, but you're not against it. So you're part of that evil as well. If you all stop spending our money and working at these companies that are against us, we would prevail so easily. There's over 2 billion Muslims. If all of us just had our own businesses and all of us worked together and all of us kept our money together within our system, we would easily be a dominant superpower. But this cannot be done in the current state we're in right now. In the current state we're in right now, Algerians hate Moroccans. I'm Algerian, and there are Moroccans that hate Algerians and Algerians that hate Moroccans over futile matters. And they forget that we're Muslim. Remember, we're Muslim first. Hundreds of years ago, when you ask somebody where they're from, they say, I am a Muslim from Algeria. I am a Muslim from Yemen. Nowadays, you ask someone what are they say, I'm Yemeni, I'm Algerian, I'm Moroccan. They just completely disregard the Muslim part. You're a Muslim first. And now onto the second thing that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said was, if you can't use your hands, then use your tongue. This means if there's a protest nearby, go attend it. Protests mainly work when there's many people. It cannot be 10 to 20 people trying to do a protest, trying to make noise. That's not gonna work. You need hundreds, if not thousands of people for there to be a change. And remember, when you show up, have your intention to be, I'm trying to help the Palestinian people. Do this for the sake of Allah. And inshallah, you will be rewarded for it. Also, look at the protests that are happening at the universities nearby. These universities are causing havoc to everyone. These students are causing complete chaos to this whole Zionist movement just by sitting in tents on their university campus. And they said, hey, we want a ceasefire. We want you to stop funding this genocide. And we're just gonna sit here. And also, I've attended these protests at my local university, and you'll be surprised at the impact it makes. You might think you're not doing nothing, like you're just screaming into air, but you have to remember, there's people watching. There's people walking by. There's people that get curious. There's one guy who's not a Muslim who came up to me at this protest, and he asked me like, hey, can you like tell me a prayer? Remember, this is a non-Muslim. He's asking me as a Muslim, hey, can you tell me a prayer? Like, I want to pray to God. Imagine if I wasn't there, or imagine if nobody was there. You would never be able to ask that question. And there was another person who took their shahada there. So imagine if the protest was never there. That person might have never took the shahada. Remember in the Quran, in chapter 99, verse 7 and 8, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the day of judgment this: so whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. So even the smallest good deed that you do in this world, you're going to see it on the day of judgment. You might show up to a protest and someone might take their shahada through you, and that might be your ticket to Jannah. You just never know. So always do as many good deeds as you can, no matter how big, no matter how small they are. The next thing you can do with your tongue is, of course, social media. You need to blast everything on social media. That's where everyone's getting their information from nowadays. So you need to blast as much as you can about what's going on in Palestine on your social media. Show them the truth, educate them, but also educate yourself. You need to be learning as well. Inshallah, you learned in the beginning of the video where I gave the brief history lesson of the Palestine and Israel conflict. But that was super brief. You need to dig deeper. So just in case someone wants to debate you or someone wants to ask you questions, you can help them. You can educate them. And of course, one of the most important parts of using your tongue to stop this oppression is make dua. Make constant dua every single day for the Palestinian people. And remember who you're making dua to, the one who is all hearing, all seeing. And inshallah, our duas get answered. And the last thing that the Prophet said was, if you can't use your hands and if you can't use your tongue, then just say you hate it in your heart and that you want nothing to do with it. May Allah give the Palestinians freedom, and may Allah give the Palestinians the victory over their oppressors, and may Allah grant us all Jannat al-Firdaus. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.